And some of you may have heard of a thing called blockchain. So blockchain is the foundation of crypto. And the best way to think of blockchain is it's just this giant Excel spreadsheet or like a bank ledger. And what happens is crypto is based on this thing called blockchain. And the blockchain is a giant Excel spreadsheet, which thousands and thousands of computers around the world are keeping a record of every transaction on crypto. Every single transaction on crypto is on this huge, giant Excel spreadsheet. And these people that own these computers are recording all these transactions. And to incentivize people to record these transactions, they get paid Bitcoin. And you may have heard of that thing called mining Bitcoin. What they do is they actually record all the transactions, every single transaction in cryptocurrency. So the terminology blockchain is what they do is they're recording a block of transactions, then they close off that block, then record another block of transactions, close up that block, and they link them together. It's called blockchain. That's all it is. A huge Excel spreadsheet recording all transactions in blocks and chain them together. So the first cryptocurrency created was Bitcoin. And you may have heard of Satoshi Nakamoto, who is either a male, female, or a group of people, we don't know. He or they created it. And the term crypto encompasses all coins and tokens. So some people talk about coins and some people talk about tokens. The important thing, I guess, here is that Bitcoin is the one that most people know, but you also hear of a thing called altcoins or shitcoins. So Bitcoin sits on its own, and everything else is called an alternative coin or a shitcoin or an altcoin. There's a limited supply of Bitcoin, 21 million will be created. 19 million already has been created. There's another 2 million to go over the next, I think, 100 years or so, because they created some, and every 4 years they create half as many, so it goes for a long time. But 19 million have already been created. Interestingly, of the 19 million that have been created, 12 million of the 19 million are held by people like probably Neil and myself, and not sold, just hung on to, held, stored for it to go up in value. About 4 million have been lost. People lose their Bitcoin, it gets stolen from them. They record everything on their laptop, they throw their laptop out, and they can't find their passwords or their private keys. So about 4 million have been lost, and about 3 million are circulating on exchanges to buy and sell. So when we say there's only going to be 21 million and 19 already minted or created, and 12 of it's already sitting in long-term hold, people don't want to sell it, there's not a lot that's circulating to buy, which means it's scarce and it puts the price up. So over the long term, it puts the price up. When Bitcoin was created, it probably started at less than a cent. And in Australian dollars, it went to $96,000. The return of Bitcoin, if you held it from the beginning, is not 10x or 20x, get this right, 6.5 million X. It is the highest returning investment in the history of all investments. So one of the questions is, why the hell was Bitcoin created? Why? And there are a number of stories why, but the one that I believe was, some of us may remember in 2008, the global financial crisis, where the greedy banking executives, if I can use a terminology that Neil uses, fucked up the financial world and made themselves rich. And they created this mortgage-backed securities that was a load of crap. They made a shitload of money, sold it off to institutions and charities and super funds and pension funds, and they crashed. So Satoshi, this person or group of people, said, if these greedy executives from banks and financial institutions can sit in a boardroom and determine they're going to get rich and they're going to stuff up the rest of the world, that's what they call centralized power. Bitcoin is decentralized, so that you do not have a situation where someone can, or a group of people can, basically destroy the financial system. And if it wasn't for the US government to bail out some of these some banks and financial institutions, it would have got worse. So we don't know the extent of how bad it was, but it was bad. So instead of having a centralized financial system, Satoshi said, let's have a decentralized system. So Bitcoin being decentralized means this: no one owns Bitcoin on their own, and there's no group of executives that can control Bitcoin. There is no CEO of Bitcoin. There's no head office of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is run by those computers on the blockchain, verifying all the transactions, and it's owned by the people that buy and sell and transact. Bitcoin was initially designed to be a payment system, peer-to-peer. So if Neil does some coaching for me, I can pay him in Bitcoin. And so he provides services and I provide him payment, and I can send my Bitcoin to Neil directly. No bank, no financial institution, no MasterCard, no Visa card. No one's clipping the ticket along the way. It's peer-to-peer. And that means what I give him and he receives is the exact amount. Now, the actual Bitcoin transaction cost might be as much as 1 cent. I mean, we're talking pennies. So Bitcoin will be eventually a peer-to-peer system, payment system. At the moment, it tends to be what they call a store of value. So you can hold it, and it's the best way to describe Bitcoin is it's like gold, but a digital gold. And where, if you compare it to dollars, where you have dollars and you have 100 cents to a dollar, with Bitcoin, you have 1 Bitcoin, but you've got 100 million, what they call Satoshis, like cents. So you don't have to own 1 Bitcoin. You can own 1 millionth of a Bitcoin or 100th of a Bitcoin. And another analogy for Bitcoin is when we send an email between us, if I send an email to Neil, Neil sends one back to me, all he needs is my email address and I need his email address. And what we do is we transfer communication, information. If I transfer Bitcoin to Neil or he transfers it to me, all he needs is, instead of an email address, is called a public key. And what we are transferring is value. So Neil does a service for me and I can pay him with Bitcoin by sending Bitcoin to his public address. Like I'd send an email to him. Email sends communication. Bitcoin sends value. Now, there are myths. Bitcoin has no backing. Well, guess what? The US dollar used to be pegged to the gold. In 1971, Nixon cut that and he said it was going to be temporary. Here we are in 2020. It's got no backing either. It's just that we've all agreed that the dollar has value. So again, people will give goods and services for the dollar because we've all agreed that. Guess what's going to happen with Bitcoin? As it becomes more mainstream, more and more people will agree it's got value. So when you say it's got no backing, that's a myth. And also that only criminals use Bitcoin. Well, you know what? Criminals use Bitcoin and they use cash. And before Bitcoin, criminals use cash. So don't use Bitcoin because criminals use it. Follow that argument. Don't use cash because criminals use cash as well. So that's a load of crap. So think of Bitcoin or crypto as a different asset class to property and shares. Yes, there is more risk in Bitcoin and in cryptocurrency, absolutely. The upside is it's exponential. And the downside is you could lose your money. But then I've bought shares before where I lost my money. So just know when you're going to crypto or Bitcoin, yes, there's a chance you could lose money, but there's a huge upside potential, and only put in what you can afford to lose. So if I lost all my crypto, my wife wouldn't be happy, but our lifestyle wouldn't change. And the only other thing would be is when you have an investment portfolio of property and shares, even if you put 2%, 3%, 5% of your money into crypto and you lost that, it's not going to change anything. But if you get the returns that I think you're going to be able to get, and people have already got, that 2 or 3% exposure could massively increase your overall return.